Hey there, team. Welcome to today's episode of The Business Octopus. Now, you might notice that it's just the Amanda show today because Avon is off gallivanting in the good old US of A, building business relationships, growing the community, and going on some amazing adventures, which he will be filling you in on when he's back. Also, make sure you're following Relevate Community and Avon Collis on socials because you can keep up with him there as well. So I thought today, knowing that he's off adventuring and building business relationships, that is what we would talk about today. And let's be real, business relationships, it can feel a little bit like being in the dating pool, right? So whether we're talking about clients, partners, new team members, potential collaborators, the same types of rules apply. You've got this honeymoon phase, the are we aligned phase, and then sometimes the wait, did you just say what I think you said phase? We'll dig into all that. The truth is, success in business doesn't come from what you know. It really does come down to who you build with and how well you're able to read the room. So let's dig in and unpack business relationships. Now, I want to start by talking about data meets gut or data meets intuition. This is really about the data that you get from people, and it's also part intuition and listening to your gut. On one hand, you've got what people say, what they do, that's your data. And on the other hand, you've got just your feeling about them or your gut. Those tiny little red flag whispers, we'll call them, saying, something is not quite right here, something is off. And despite what some people might tell you, both of them matter. Please do not trust only on vibes. You also can't spreadsheet your way to healthy business relationships. The magic really is in the balance. Data will show you patterns, and your gut will tell you something that isn't necessarily obvious in that data. Now let's talk about green flags, right? The signs that we found what could be a healthy business relationship. Let's talk about that good stuff first. And the reasons that you might think, yep, I could work with this person, we can do great things together. The first thing I'll say is congruence. So the type of person that will say what they mean and they do what they say. You've got alignment between their words, their actions, and their follow through. You don't have to use a whole bunch of mental bandwidth trying to decode what's going on. They're predictable in the best way possible. And when we talk about leadership, I do a lot of leadership training. We talk about leaders that are predictable, and not to say boring, but predictable. If I know how my leader's going to show up, if I can anticipate how they're going to show up and they have good and positive intent, that builds incredible trust. And the same is true with our business relationships, right? Now, that said, let's dig into that a little bit more. Predictability builds trust. And I said it sounds boring, but people feel safe around consistency and what they can predict. They don't want fireworks every week. They don't want situations where they're walking on eggshells or they're like, I don't know how this person's going to react or respond to what's going on. They want reliability. They want a person who actually shows up when they say they will. If they say something, then that's like, if they say this is my plan and this is what's going to happen, then that's what happens. Or if that changes, they inform people about it. Predictability builds trust. So look for those patterns in people's behavior as well. I have a particular incident. I've been involved in quite a few business relationships over the years. And one of them had this particular gentleman that I was working with, lovely guy, just there was that incongruency there. So he would say one thing, like he would say, oh, we're going to do this. And then the very next week, he would go off in a completely different direction. And that would have been fine if he had have let myself and the rest of the team know that that was the plan. Unfortunately, it was like he'd have this conversation with us here, and then all this other stuff would happen, and he'd change his mind somewhere along the way and just forget to tell everybody else. Do not be that person. If something changes, remember, tell the people around you. Be a good partner as well. I guess this is part what to look for in a good business partner. partnership arrangement, whether it's a client, a team member, but also be that person, please. Genuine interest is the other one I wanted to talk about. Someone that's genuinely interested in you. They ask questions about your business and they don't just reach out to you when they need something. They remember your project, that thing that you were really passionate about, the names of your team and your goals. They care about the person behind the email signature. That is so important in business and just in life in general. Look for people that actually give a damn about you. Another one that some people will disagree with me on this, and that's fine. They'll accept help. This is a big one. People who can't accept help, or if they ask you for advice and don't actually act on it, usually have control or trust issues, potentially both. Healthy collaborators, they know how to receive just as well as they give. So keep an eye out for that one as well. Another one I wanted to mention, and this has come up fairly recently in my world. I've been networking with a few individuals that just do not speak very highly of other people. And it comes down to it. You actually have to say, so is there anyone that actually you rate? Is there anyone that you would give at least a 4 out of 5 to? And that's a problem. If they are unable to speak highly of other people and they just berate and degrade other people, that's a problem. Pay attention to how they talk about other people. If they speak with respect, even if they disagree with them, then you're dealing with someone who's highly emotionally intelligent, and that is very important as well. And on that, if there is someone out in the wild that you need to be warned about, people that are able to raise red flags really kindly. So the best relationships have this safety for honesty, I like to call it. If someone can say, hey, I noticed something about that person that didn't feel great to me without blaming or creating drama around it, that's gold. It's just, you can give people a little warning, right? Now, on that, red flags, let's talk about what you should therefore watch out for. If their words and actions don't match, if they make you a promise and they forget about it later, that's a massive red flag. People that forget what they have told you, especially when it's something that could be of major significance to you, that's a problem. They talk about values and then they don't live them. That's not miscommunication, that's misalignment. So keep an eye out for that. And, you know, to be fair, what do we say? Once is a one-off. Second time is a coincidence. The third time, that's a pattern, okay? Second one, selective memory. Now, if they only remember what benefits them and they conveniently forget what benefits you, that's not a mistake. That's a pattern. And remember, we're talking about if this is a business partner, a collaborator, a client, a team member, this all applies. Now, here's one I've come across out in the wild, which I still find really strange, but it happens. It's an inconsistency in their energy. So 1 week, they're your biggest cheerleader. Next week, you've been ghosted. We've all been there, right? And it's like emotional whiplash, right? That kills trust faster than any missed deadline. So just look for consistency. And I get that people get busy. It's just look out for people that only will be there when they need something from you is my biggest warning there. Now, this one, huge red flag, should have been at the top if I'm honest. If you don't align on values. Now, not everyone has to think or act like you, but certain things do need to match. So integrity, accountability, ownership, respect. If you don't share those basic building blocks, everything else will eventually fall apart. So they're the kind of things that should be obvious very, very quickly. And if you talk to Avon, he talks about rapid values alignment, if you've seen his video on that. And that is so crucial that you get those basic things right. Now, here's another one. If you raise a concern and they downplay that concern, that one, keep an eye out for that. Now, I am a people-focused person and I'm a detail-focused person. So I tend to get in the weeds of things, especially when it comes to people. I'll fully admit that. But if I come to someone and I have a concern And if I'm made to feel dramatic or sensitive about that, that's not cool. I've raised a concern, and I don't raise them very often. But if I put my hand up and said, this is not feeling right to me, there's an issue there as well. Now, as I said, if you've got people out there that talk badly about others, you know you're next. You are not safe. If you've got people that will talk badly of others, that's just how they talk about other people. And that could be potentially how they're talking about you when you're not around. What I will normally say, if I've had some failed business dealings over my years, I will normally say, I can't think of anyone that I would not sit down at the pub and have a meal with and like have a good time. I just can't work with them. Right? And there's a difference. There's a difference. So there's also something we talk about in recruitment where we'll say the one question you should ask if you're doing a phone reference check is, would you work with them again? Would you hire them again? Yes, no answer. If they say no, that's it. You didn't speak poorly of them. You just said, I would not make the decision to hire them again. Same sort of thing. If people have that emotional intelligence and they're able to speak, well of others, even if they had a bad experience, that's what you're looking for. So if they talk badly about others, that could be a red flag. So gut checks, team. Now, your gut is important. Listen to your gut. It's not a drama queen. I firmly believe that there's a sixth sense going on. Your subconscious is noticing patterns that your brain potentially hasn't caught up with yet. If something feels off, I'm not saying just like pull the pin, but definitely pause. And it's not about overanalyzing, but you do need to stop and think about what's happening, observe what's going on. Like, good questions I like to ask myself. When I've spent maybe half a day with this person, do I feel energized or drained? Do I feel respected or do I feel managed? What's another good one? Am I over explaining myself to be understood? And if the answer to those questions is, bad, like, am I exhausted? Am I confused? Your gut is telling you this is not a good fit. All right. So remember that. Now, business relationships don't have to be like these bestie, rock solid friendships that last forever. They're not about being nice and cordial. That is part of it, but it's really about alignment. Pay attention to what people say, what they do, and also how they make you feel in their presence. Remember, the data is something that you should take hold of to tell you what's happening. And then your gut, your brain, all that good stuff will decipher that and help you understand what that means. And if there's congruency there, you found your people, right? So team, I know you've all ignored red flags because it wasn't that bad, or you might have overlooked a green flag because it felt too easy. Here's your sign. If there's someone you're working with right now, do a little check-in. Remember, you can ask those questions that I mentioned earlier. Trust your logic, trust those instincts as well. And also remember, every kind of relationship in your business, clients, business partners, collaborators, your team members, even just a contractor that you collaborate with behind the scenes. Good relationships, regardless of where they come from, will make you feel safe, supported, and inspired. And the bad ones will make you question your worth or your sanity. So let's not indulge in that. Choose wisely, because your business and you deserve the kind of people who make the work feel lighter, not heavier. And remember, if you've enjoyed today's video, remember to hit like, subscribe. Let me know in the comments what your biggest business red flag is. And remember to join us in the Relevate community, where you can tell us your red flag stories and maybe get some advice on how to get out of, maybe you need to break up with one of these situationships so that you can move on to the next big thing. Thanks for tuning in to today's video, and you remember to stay classy. We'll see you next time.